Good morning from WKYT News. I'm Bill Bryant, and we welcome you to Kentucky Newsmakers. We hope you're enjoying your Memorial Day weekend. Later, Frankfort Mayor William May will be here as Kentucky's 225th anniversary of statehood approaches later this week. The capital city is a special place where there are some questions about the future. Mayor May will be with us shortly. But first, WKYT's Dick Gabriel had an exclusive story this week about former Wildcat football coach Guy Morris. The one-time Kentucky coach is dealing with alzheimer's. It may be the biggest challenge in a lifetime of taking down opponents. Dick is joining me now, and we'll look at his piece as well. Dick, thanks for coming in. Sure. How did your interview come about?
I had heard that the coach had been struggling a little bit with dementia, and anytime you hear about a veteran football player dealing with that sort of thing, you're concerned. And then the word got to me that he and his wife wanted to tell the story because so many friends of theirs and fans had approached him, "Hey, Coach, how you doing?" And they noticed something was wrong. And I had produced his TV show, and he was here, and some other, I worked with a radio network and traveled with the team and that sort of thing. So we had a relationship, so they reached out to me and said, "Would you do this?" And I said, "That would be an honor." It was very difficult, obviously, but not nearly as difficult as what he's going through.
You detected yourself as well.
You could tell, yes. You could tell. And I had bumped into him before, and I talked to other people, and you could tell that there was something going on, and it just breaks your heart.
We'll look at your piece, and then we'll talk some.
To friends and fans, it was becoming obvious he just wasn't the same Guy Mo.
People say, "What's wrong with Coach Morris? Why is he doing this?" Or he's kind of sluggish. Speech is not what it should be.
He admits now when it came to dealing with people, he hadn't been his old self, and there's a reason.
State-of-the-art testing, looking at PET scan imaging of the brain, was able to actually detect amyloid plaques in his brain. That is a hallmark feature of Alzheimer's disease.
For the past 9 months, Guy and his wife Jackie have been dealing with that sobering diagnosis, likely brought on by more than 20 years as an offensive lineman, 15 in the NFL.
We know that many NFL players and folks that have engaged in careers where repetitive head injury, even mild head injury, can predispose to a variety of conditions.
The football world has accepted it, that you're at risk if you take all these hits and stuff.
The NFL may have begun to accept the results of years of research. It's not so easy for former players handed this kind of diagnosis.
It's hard to accept.
He first sought out medical advice 4 years ago when he was living in Texas at the Center for Brain Health in Dallas, where they told him he was dealing with a form of dementia.
I wouldn't accept it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. This can't be happening to me.
The Morrises eventually moved back to their adopted home state, Kentucky, where Guy worked for a time with high school teams, first in Bowling Green, then Lexington. But his problems persisted to the point where he could barely function.
At first, I couldn't write my name. Could not write my name. And that's, I didn't know my ABCs. I couldn't do that little rhyme.
Eventually, he couldn't dress himself or tie his own shoes. In the fall of last year, the Morrises came to UK's Sanders Brown Center on Aging, where testing revealed Guy was in the early stages of Alzheimer's, a shocker. But the treatment included a drug called Aricept, which has helped Guy begin to become Guy again after a lot of hard work.
Let's have you help me.
Clock again.
Let's have you help me draw that clock again. How's that?
Let's say that's 1.
A Guy takes it home with him, so if he doesn't perform up to his own standards on any particular task I might have him do to tease out how he's doing in general, he will go home and practice as though he was in a game.
I've been practicing.
All right. Well, it shows, without a doubt.
A man once named to the NFL Pro Bowl, who played in a Super Bowl, now is tackling the greatest challenge of his life, looking for victories wherever he can find them.
You stay with it, you learn the pattern again, and that's a win for me, you know. Dressing myself is a win for me. Tying shoes is a win for me.
Researchers are hoping to have a cure for Alzheimer's within a decade, but for patients right now, the future is bleak, including the Morrises, who have between them 5 daughters and 4 grandchildren.
Well, we've all kind of accepted it. I mean, everybody knows what we're dealing with, and the prognosis of beating it probably not going to be there for me.
Dick Gabriel, WKYT.
Still seems very pleasant, but very frustrated, obviously.
Absolutely. That's a great word, frustrated. And he told us at length about what it was like just trying to put his watch on. I mean, imagine that. You do it every day if you still wear one. And he said he just could not do it. Now, the Airset has helped to the point where he can. But he said, I can't make the connection from my brain to my hands, or when I'm speaking, I know what I want to say, but I can't form the words.
This head contact issue, that again seems to be an important factor in this. The doctor zeroed in on it, and he seems frustrated by this as well.
We talked a little bit about this, that didn't make the piece, but about the old helmets and the drills they did, and we did them in high school as well. Everything you led with your forehead, and I said, I remember getting a little cut on my nose, and he said, oh yeah, that all came from that sort of contact. So the league is getting better about it. The concussion protocol is here, but for too many people it's too late.
The medicine is helping some with the dementia?
Ariset's really well known. I did a little research on that, and yes, it has really helped him with that. And people who are in denial, who won't take their meds, are really, really missing out, and it affects the caregivers as well.
This was an opportunity for you to learn more about what Dr. Jaika and his team is doing over there as well, and a pretty amazing thing.
It's remarkable.
Is he very hopeful?
Absolutely. 7 years they hope they'll have a cure for this dreaded disease, which I guarantee it's touched people it has touched 2 or 3 people I know. It's insidious. It's everywhere, and it just seems like you hear more and more about it because research is so much better, but people are coming forward now. Again, too many people in denial, but there is hope.
After doing the piece, your thoughts about the coach and his support from his family?
Well, it's heartwarming on the one hand to know how many people really loved him and still do and miss him, and they hated when he left and all that. And he is back to being a UK football fan. He goes to the ball games, says I get to heckle and second guess and that sort of stuff. But the response to the piece, to the WKYT Facebook page and to my personal page, was just overwhelming. And I've talked to them since, and they said phone calls have poured in from former players in Kentucky and Texas, NFL teammates everywhere.
Well, it's great. At this point, he can accept those calls and at least, and have some interaction.
Yes, he can, and remembers, hey, coach, do you remember this and that? Remember my nickname, and he'll remember things like that.
That's great.
Yeah, right now,
Well, there's never a slow time for Kentucky sports.
No.
The baseball team's had a terrific year.
Yep.
You have, of course, looking forward to football this year, and then Diallo is going to stay and play. Did that surprise you?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah?
It really did, but yeah, never a dull moment.
All right. Dick Gabriel, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And for all you do here at WKYT after all these years. Coming next on Kentucky Newsmakers, longtime Frankfort Mayor Bill May joins us. He'll talk about his hometown and your capital city just ahead on WKYT. Welcome back to Kentucky Newsmakers on WKYT. As Kentucky celebrates its 225th anniversary as a Commonwealth this week, we're all reminded of the importance and the historical significance of our capital city. Frankfort is the place where deals are made and disputes are settled. It's also a city that can be full of energy and then quaint and quiet later in the same day. There are changes on the horizon. The state wants to demolish part of the town. The city's mayor is dealing with a lot of questions about that right now, about where things go from here. Frankfort Mayor William May, good enough to join us this morning. And thank you, Mayor, for coming in. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Bill. It is always a pleasure to be here with you.
As we said, this is a special time for Kentucky with Statehood Day coming up on June 1st, 1792, 225 years ago, the founding of our Commonwealth. There have been a lot of legends about how Frankfort came to be our capital. What is was it really a compromise? Is that how it was?
Well, there were were other towns, cities that wanted to be the capital, and so in 1792, the citizens, I'll have to read this because I can't remember it, but it said that the offer of Andrew Holmes's log house as capital for 7 years, a number of town lots, 50 pounds worth of locks and hinges, 10 boxes of glass, 1,500 pounds of nails, and $3,000 in gold. So, you know, nails, glass, and some gold, and a log cabin. Sort of got us on this trail.
It was sort of the incentive package.
That was it. That was the economic
at the time.
incentive.
Well, because you know there was pull between Louisville and Lexington.
They were in their mix too.
They were running into some other cities that wanted it, but Frankfort got it and has held on to it. As I understand it, there were times even 100 years into our history that there were some who said, yeah, well, maybe we should move it to one of the bigger cities.
Sure.
So Frankfort has had to hold on to the capital at times.
We have, and the other thing I think that was important was being on a river, being a river town. That was something that was one of the key ways that people would travel long distances back then. So that helped us a bit too.
Lots of things have played out in that city over the years. You know, as we said, the deals have been made, things have been settled, and so forth. Do you feel that history when you walk the streets?
I always feel that history every day. My family has been there for many generations. My father's family came from Woods Bend, Kentucky, up in Morgan County in the mountains, and came to Frankfort. But my mother's side of the family has been there for many, many generations in the early 1800s. In fact, Frankfort's first mayor was my great-great-great-grandfather. So I feel that connection anytime I walk into City Hall. Of course, it's not the same City Hall that he would have been in. But there's times when I'm on my way home, I have to drive by the state capitol and look at its beauty. I drive by the old capitol all the time and look at its natural beauty and just sort of think about when my forefathers were in government and when my great-great-grandfather, that was the first mayor, later became a senator. And so I think about what he was thinking about at the time, right before the Civil War started, and the steps that he would have walked up in the old Capitol. And then in the new Capitol, I think about my grandfather on my father's side, who came in the 1920s and served up until the 1950s in the state Senate and the House of Representatives. And I just think, what did it look like to them? What did they feel when they walked into those buildings and the awesome responsibilities on their shoulders? So I think every day about the history of Frankfort.
And the issues that they faced in those days.
Absolutely.
Well, what is it like now to be mayor and help manage a city that has about 28,000 or so permanent residents during the daytime, or I guess I should say at nighttime when people are there, but yet it can get close to 100,000 people or so during the daytime on a busy day for state government?
Yeah, we have a lot of people that come in and do business with the state. There's a lot of factories there that have people that work in those facilities too. So we have to have larger fire departments, larger police force. We have to have an emergency plan for that many people in addition to what we would do for our permanent residents. So it puts a lot of responsibility on us to be the seat of state government. But it's something that our folks are delighted and honored to do. And it just makes it so exciting when we have community events like our downtown concert series that starts in summer, and we have people from all around come in and do that. We also have a lot of tourists that come in for the bourbon industry to be there and to come in to see the Capitol and Daniel Boone's grave, which is there. So it's interesting.
Do you feel that the state adequately compensates the city for the impact that it has on the local residents there?
Well, some argue that it does, and others argue that it doesn't. A lot of the state property is in the city, and it's tax exempt, so we don't get any property taxes off of those properties, but we do get an occupational tax off of all the folks who come to work in those facilities. So it's a nice balance, but our school system has been suffering lately with lack of funding, and part of that is because they need more revenue from property tax from taxable properties. So there's been some ongoing discussions with our legislative delegation with the executive branch and the legislative branch on ways to try to help alleviate some of that pressure.
And in a way, you're like Kentucky's D.C. I mean,
exactly
right?
Like Kentucky's D.C.
Yeah, I mean, you have to respond to the situations that might occur with your local public service people, but at the same time, you don't always get the taxes from the property.
That's right.
Let me ask you this: there is a lot of attention on what is happening with the old state office tower down there, the Civic Center shops. We get word that it's going to be redeveloped, yet there seems to be a plan to demolish it all, and we've yet to really see what's next. Is that creating concern in your town?
Yes, some folks are very happy about the opportunity to have the tower come down, which has been talked about for a little over 10 years, and have something new built back. So what new is going to be built back through a public-private partnership is a state office building that would be, according to the state folks, no taller than 5 stories high, because it's right next to the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet and at the base of Fort Hill, which is an historic part of the city. And that would be 1,500 approximately office workers, state employees that would be there, which would be a great influx into our downtown, because we lost several hundred when the state moved people out of the tower and moved them out to another building. But on the other side of that coin, we have hoped and are still hoping to be able to find a way to renovate or build a new convention center or multi-use facility, is what I would like to say.
Well, here you have already lost the Kentucky Book Fair. It is moving to Lexington. I know that is a stab at the heart to some over there in Frankfort who've been so proud to host that for many years. There are other events that are held annually or regularly there at the Civic Center.
Right.
No wonder there are questions, right?
Yes, and one of the visions that I've had as mayor was to try to come up with an area that could be used for residential development, commercial, retail, and office, professional development area, and also a new multi-use facility that could host the types of events that we want to keep in Frankfort, and also to attract some new events. So we're going to look at doing a market analysis to determine what type of facility would Frankfort and the surrounding area support. We don't want to underbuild and we don't want to overbuild. But we're going to look at it as an opportunity now to bring in new development and get more people in the downtown area to help our local businesses sort of rejuvenate the downtown area. So we're going to look at it now as an opportunity to do something positive that will affect many generations. So we're hoping that maybe we can do a public-private partnership and also work with the New Markets Tax Credits program, as something that I've been advocating for a couple of years in that area, to really upgrade the area and get more people living and working in that area.
You can understand how there might be some who have concerns that while there is a plan
Absolutely.
to tear it all down,
Absolutely.
there is not a solid plan to do the replacing.
Absolutely. Some folks are very alarmed by it. We're hoping that we can educate the public to get them on board with understanding exactly why this process is happening and why the state is not able to go to the legislature and get money to try to do a lot of new projects around the state. We would love to have that, and we will certainly continue to ask and keep our fingers crossed. We'll do what we can, but we recognize that the state can't afford to maintain those facilities. And the fact that the convention center space is also connected with the heating and cooling system that's in the tower. And so that's over $3 million according to the state figures, just to separate that.
Mayor, would you like to see something done there that is more in line with Frankfort's historical significance?
Yes,
we have talked,
we would.
That really has that 60s and 70s vibe down there, just a lot of concrete.
Right, it doesn't look good. That's why we're going to look at it as an opportunity to go away from a concrete jungle where everybody leaves at 4:30 and nobody's back down there. And the opportunity to have fresh, buildable space in that area after this many years, to come back and try to do it right. We are not in a situation where we can say we know it's going to happen, we know what we're going to try to do. In the area that is adjacent to where the tower is and the Civic Center and the Fountain Place shops, it's in a census tract that would allow us to do a new markets tax credit program. So we're going to work with some folks to try to see if we can generate some interest. I already had some folks talking to me last year in 2016 when I was running for mayor to come forward and talk about ways to do one of those projects. So since around October of last year, I've been trying to figure out how we're going to make that happen. And so coincidentally, when we found out this month that the state is ready to tear down the tower and they're going to give us the opportunity to look at the green space that will be left when the Fountain Place shops come out and the convention center comes out, this gives us a blank canvas to really start fresh and try to figure out what will be the best use of that area.
We're with William May. He is a longtime mayor of Frankfort. We're going to come back with some more questions for him in just a moment. We're glad you're along on WKYT's Kentucky Newsmakers, and we'll be right back. Welcome back now to WKYT's Kentucky Newsmakers as we're visiting with the mayor of Frankfort, William May, who is with us today. You got started in this a long time ago. Sometimes it's hard to remember when you weren't mayor. I mean, I know there was time you had to interrupt because you were term limits.
Term limits, yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
When did you start?
Well, you know, it was funny. I was thinking about the other day. I was 31 when I put my name on the ballot in 1991 to run for city commission. And so since that time, you know, I've served 4 terms as commissioner and now my 5th term as mayor. So since 1992, I've held office in the city of Frankfort.
As Frankfort builds, its economy is going forward. Do you feel confident about the future of the economy there in the capital?
Well, you know, like all cities across America, we're experiencing some difficulties in the downtown area. That seems to be a problem for a lot of folks, but this past year, some investors that have some really good ideas, some young folks in Frankfort here, have bought some of the buildings on downtown Main Street. And so those storefronts that were vacant are starting to fill back up. We're hoping that they can sustain their new businesses and keep that going because we feel like the heart of any city is its downtown area. And hopefully we're going to continue working to make Frankfort a destination for cultural, entertainment, arts and education type events. And we've got a lot of new artists that have opened up galleries. Some folks have opened up new buildings. They've renovated some buildings. One of our downtown buildings, the McClure building, is full of tenants now.
Would you like to see more nightlife in Frankfort?
Absolutely, yes. You know, just to make it a cultural and arts and education destination. When I say arts and education, for people to come in and learn about arts in the community, and for some of the galleries that do programs to bring young people along and get them interested. And we want to continue doing programs such as one that I partnered with Kentucky Employees Credit Union, and this year Harrod Concrete and Stone will be a partner to bring some special concerts in the downtown area as a way to call attention to the arts. And so what we do is we bring in famous people, and some people are more famous than others, and these are all national touring people and people that record on the big records. And while we're there, we always give a little spiel about the importance of reminding your city and county leaders and your state legislators and the governor and the president and all of our folks to don't cut funding to the arts, because these young people who have a passion for that, that's their calling, and that's what they do, and we need to support that just like we do science, math, and technology.
Let's tell people what you call that event, by the way.
Well, we call it some of my friends think I should change it, but we call it Jamming with the Mayor.
Because you are very capable of jamming with them.
Yes, and so I get up and play drums with them.
Yeah, I was going to say, in fact, you do a lot of that.
We do a lot of that, and I have my own jazz group, the Bill May 5, but then we can also turn that into R&B and other things by adding people and expanding it. But you know, very fortunate to get to play with some really talented musicians, and not just in Kentucky, but from Nashville and other places on occasion.
So those events will be coming up this summer for folks.
Yes, we looks like the Kentucky Employees Credit Union and Harrod Concrete are going to sponsor the first one, which we are still trying to work the date around because of some some conflicts on some shows, but it'll be Jonelle Mosser and Jack Pearson. Jack used to play with the Allman Brothers, lead guitar player, and then some other folks in there. Last year, Jonelle, she came up and did the show with us when we had Chester Thompson from Genesis, Phil Collins on drums, and who was one of my teachers.
Really?
Yes, and someone I look up to, not just as a world-class drummer, but as just a beautiful person inside, who just one of the nicest people that you'd ever want to meet. And some other folks, we had a Des Dickerson from Prince that was with us, and the interesting thing, people just loved Jonelle, so they wanted her to come back. So we're going to do a show with her, and then I'm going to invite some friends that are in a band called Louisville Crashers. Now they're a cover band, so they'll be the only cover band that we will do. But they are so fantastic that they play all over. I think right now this week they're out in someplace in Colorado, doing a big 3-day tour. But these folks are really good, and we'll have a lot of fun.
Well, it sounds like you really enjoy your hometown.
We do love it. We do love it.
There, and no wonder you've enjoyed serving as mayor for so long. Well, thank you for coming by.
Oh, thank you as always.
Frankfort's Mayor, William May, we appreciate it very much.
Appreciate you.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of Kentucky Newsmakers on WKYT. Join us bright and early for the latest on WKYT this morning and this week ahead, and you make it a good week ahead.